I'm in The Hague now. Okay, in this video I'll talk about Europe for a while. Let me see where I can sit down and show this. Well, you can see it here. You know, the Central European Bank, the Central Bank of Europe, you know, they've decided to make a new paper design for their cash money, and they are displaying that throughout Europe now. See, the European Union, they want to unite the whole of Europe into a new superstate. They're already busy doing it, but there's one big barrier they need to overcome, and that's, you know, social cohesion between the Europeans. Oh dear, I'm not going to sit over there. It's too wet. You know, and let's go back in time for a while. You go back 3,000 years, 3,500 years back into history. Europe, you know, it was a wild wasteland. You had the Germanic tribes and the Celtic tribes living here. You also had the black Europeans. Those are the descendants of Ham that remained behind in Europe. So you also had a black indigenous European population. All of those were living in this area, but it was a mess. Then came the Greeks, and they explored the area, and they gave names to certain countries based upon the descendants of the people. And for example, the descendants of Tarshish, who lived in what we today call the British Isles and Islands, that area they called Britannia, and Ireland apart they called Ibernia. You know, just because the people living on that huge island, they didn't want to be associated with the people on the large island. So that's why they called Ireland Hibernia, and the rest they called Britannia. You see, and in the 3rd century BC, Alexander III of Macedonia, which was a Nephilim, he founded the Greek Empire. And you know, so Europe, you know, became a little bit more organized in the sense that, you know, because the Greeks divided Europe into provinces, and later the Greek Empire was further expanded into Europe, and it became the Roman Empire under Gaius, who was an Edomite, and Khazar by the way. But, you know, and then white supremacy was installed, which implied that if your skin was white, you know, you're the man or you're the woman, and if you're colored, you're a loser. Okay. So Gaius, also named Augustus, was the first Roman emperor. By the way, the emperor was the king of Italy, and he was also the overseer of all the area around the Mediterranean. So Augustus, he imported Germans to have high military positions throughout the empire, just to enforce the idea of white supremacy. And the Greeks and Romans also went to, you know, what today called the Caribbean. The Romans called it Honorium. They also had contact with the Indians in the West. In the East, they had contact with the Chinese, present-day Japanese and Koreans. Also the Malay people. You see, the Greeks and Romans had contact with all nations living on Earth and all kindreds on Earth. They didn't rule all of them because they didn't have the military power to do so, but they had impact on all of them. You see, the one thing you won't read about in your history books is that, you know, that the Greeks and Romans, they established a client kingdom in the Caribbean called Florida, which was centered around the present day, which was basically this present, what we today call Florida, maybe a few islands of the Caribbean also. The problem was that client Greek kingdom didn't stand. That's why also the Romans didn't like to talk about it. And in our history books today, they completely left it out. You see? most of the history you read in your history books is biased and based upon propaganda. See, the Greeks and Romans lost many battles. For example, Ibernia, the way the Greeks called Ireland, the Romans established a Greek kingdom that called Ibernia, which basically was a whole isle of Ireland. However, that kingdom Hibernia didn't lose either. You did have some military camps there in Ireland, but to speak of a complete Roman control, it never happened. Caledonia was another client kingdom, or Greek kingdom they established. Also, it didn't work out. So they often didn't talk about Caledonia, and later the Romans built 2 walls in the 2nd century. 2 times they built walls to keep the Caledonians outside. Like Germany or Germania. Germania was a whole Middle Europe, including Scandinavia. So basically, Germania was above the Alps, the Donau River and the Rhine River, all the way up. That was considered Germania. Yet the Romans named, this area Holland, the Netherlands, they called Germania Inferior, Lower Germany, or just Germany. So whenever they talk about Germany, the people that lived in the countries around the Mediterranean always believed they were talking about the rest of Europe in the north. Well, it was just this little area here, Holland, they were talking about. Such things the Romans and Greeks did to confound people, just to pretend as if they are the greatest. They were holding on to an illusion that wasn't true. Okay, so if even in Europe, that's close to Rome and Greece, they had so many trouble, they had more trouble in the Caribbean, you see. So that's why they left that out of their great stories. Yet they were there. You see, the Greco-Roman Empire, the Greco-Roman Empire, it fell apart. It continued during the Middle Ages as the Catholic kingdoms. In the 19th century, in the 16th century, again, white supremacy started to go around the globe, and this time they used more force than before. Europe had a bigger population this time, so they had more strength to subdue the rest of the world. Colonization began, the transatlantic slave trade began. In the 19th century, Europe was such a mess that they've abolished the night class and began to install police officers, firemen, hospitals, you name it, and every area became a nation state. Then you had 2 world wars, and afterwards then people want to unite Europe again. They abandoned their colonies, and now they want to have a one world order, with Europe being a unity, North America unity, Latin America unity. You can search all up on the internet. See, that's in short the history of Europe and the history of white supremacy or racism. See, and I want to tell you guys the following. The racism, is basically a religion that's based upon fear, because every religion has to do with fear, but what I'm trying to say is racism, it's all about fear and cowardice. Why? Because Caucasian white people that have no pigment at all in their skin, those people are very rare in the world. You see, today you can say only 8 till 12% of the world population is Caucasian white. And it's becoming less because Caucasian white people aren't having many kids as they used to. They're having kids later in life and everything. Homosexuality is also, hindering the procreation. So the 12% of Caucasian white people of all of humanity today is going to become less soon. And you see, all throughout history, Caucasian white people were a scant minority. They were possibly, even during the Roman era, they were less than 12%, maybe 5% or 4%. You see, yet, if you look in the world now, it appears as if Caucasian white people are the majority. Because most institutions and governments are led by Caucasian white people. So that's why that creates the illusion as if Caucasian white people are far more advanced. Well, it's not true. Not only are they a minority of mankind, they are also the minority that did the most exploitation and the most crimes against humanity. Okay? And they are also the most, and at one side they're also the most guilty minority of Earth also, when it comes to the spiritual realm, to say about Satanism and everything. And they're also, you know, they are also the greatest thieves in history, because, you know, the technology of railways, like you see rails over there in the ground. See, rails were already used in ancient Egypt to transport goods. See, they didn't build enormous trains to transport people, but the technology of railways comes from ancient Egypt, not from Great Britain. So another thing, medicine and all the sciences, all throughout the ancient world, it was available to everyone. Yes, also electricity was already used by the Egyptians and the Indians and the Japanese and everybody. The thing is, since the 16th century, Europe focused more on electricity and developing electricity. So that's why for the majority they began to use electricity in their with the ancient technologies. And that's why, you know, they've managed to recreate things like airplanes, because also the ancient Egyptians also had airplanes. Little ones, not those big Airbus we have today. And everything. So they recreated, you know, they reinvented many ancient stuff, but in a more quick way, because they use a lot of electricity. You know, and that's the development the West brought to the world. See, but that's not because of white supremacy. That's because of intelligent Caucasian white people that, you know, use ancient technology for the benefit of others. It's not because of nation states or anything. You see, many things of history that you've known have been lied. Okay? And by the way, about ancient black Europeans, not only ancient, all throughout the Middle Ages you had indigenous black Europeans, but since the 19th century, most of them have been killed through genocide, and the Nazi Empire was the last empire that completely killed all the indigenous black Europeans. Today, you can go to Sweden, you can go to Russia, you can go to Greece, to Switzerland, to Ireland, so all of those places you can't find not one indigenous black European anymore, because they killed them all to hold up their standard of white supremacy, which is racism. See, such stuff you will not be taught in school. But I'm telling it to you now. Look, I'm not, accusing, the Caucasian white population of mankind. And I'm not saying that all Caucasian white people are thieves, murderers, assassinators, and everything. No, I'm not doing that. See, many Caucasian white people have racial tendencies, like their ancestors, but see, the Lord will deal with them for that. Okay? But what I will not do is deny reality and deny history. Okay, and you see, Caucasian white people, they are a minority of mankind. They are now reaping what they've sown throughout the ages. Haven't you noticed that there are many white young people going with guns into schools and shooting everybody? Haven't you realized that, that many, Caucasian white societies are in terror and chaos right now? That white youth is going astray, Haven't you noticed all the plagues that are happening in Western Europe and white America? You see, the Bible is very clear. God will punish. No, let me say it right. God will visit the sins of the forefathers unto the children till fourth generation, till the fourth generation of those that hate them. So the Caucasian white people of today who have racial tendencies, they are following into the footsteps of their forefathers till 4 generations back. So that's why the Lord is making them reap the consequences of what their wicked ancestors did. And because they're wicked, just like their ancestors, they are reaping 4 generational curses. Okay? And you know, if you're Caucasian white and you're listening to this, you better be saved, or else you will share in those curses also. So, with that being said, you see, history should not be denied, neither should the present reality be denied. And you see, Caucasian white people committed a lot of crimes against humanity. And many Caucasian white people are still very proud of it. And it shouldn't be like that. That's why the Lord is taking measures against them. Okay? You see? I'm not condemning everybody, I'm just stating things as they are. Well, this is it for now. And may the grace of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ be with you.